But this morning's events were very moving, and it was very inspiring to be able to give the award in my mother's honor to 8 extraordinary women from all around the world. And it is my hope, and I believe the hope of the jury and of the World Jurist Association, that in presenting this award, it will be an inspiration and a stimulus to other women in many countries to continue working for human rights. She seems to have inspired a lot of young women, I guess, by her example, by her very calm and steady nature. My mother was not a rhetorical firebrand. She wrote some very strong dissents, but she was above all a jurist. She was not a politician. But I think perhaps the example, particularly in recent years, of a very stable, serious, rigorous person working steadily for the rights of women and of men was a good example. That I can't really answer. She was completely surprised by this development. It was a law student at NYU who started a Tumblr, a blog, and it just took off. And she certainly had no anticipation. She said in the documentary about her, she said, I'm 85 years old and everybody wants to take their picture with me. It was just, to her, it was somewhat astounding. Well, I think we need more legislation because I think the Supreme Court, as currently composed, is not likely to interpret ambiguous texts in a way that furthers equality. I think Congress has to do its job of creating texts that clearly require equal treatment and also especially voting rights. Well, I mean, she grew up in Brooklyn in a Jewish family in a neighborhood that was certainly not entirely Jewish, but that had many Jewish families. And it was just part of the culture. My mother and my father were not members of a temple. They were not religiously observant, but they, I think, communicated a very strong cultural sense of Judaism to their children. I think she would have been completely appalled. As bad as things had been, I'm not sure she would have expected that. And she, I think, probably would have been even more upset about how Congress seems to have forgotten the outrage and is behaving very irresponsibly, I think. But of course, as a judge, she could not say any of those things. She can't criticize the political branches. There are other justices, particularly Justice Kagan, Justice Sotomayor, who will take up the baton, prendre le relais. But I think it's really not a question of identifying a particular jurist or a particular Supreme Court justice. It's really up to everybody to carry forward her efforts. Because every culture, every civilization needs creators, but creators need to be able to make a living. And the danger now is that we have many wonderful forms of communicating works, which also are very effective forms of pirating works. And so it becomes increasingly difficult for authors to make a living.